ban the bomb demonstrators mobilised in force in Trafalgar Square. To make sure they didn't march to Parliament Square, 4,000 police were drafted to the area. The big sit-down included Vanessa Redgrave, Shelagh Delaney and fellow playwright John Osborne. There too was the author Sir Herbert Reid. They followed the tactics Gandhi made popular in India, passive resistance. The movement will grow, believes Shelagh Delaney. Support comes from some of the churches and is not confined to young people. On this occasion, the police were instructed to show no force, and complaints against them were few. The fact remains, perhaps rather comically, that to sit down in a public thoroughfare in the cause of world peace is a breach of the peace according to law. So the authorities won't allow it. When some became less passive, many were arrested. It's pretty safe to say that in most countries at this stage, there'd have been a riot. Police had coaches and vans laid on, foreseeing that they'd have to arrest so many, transport to the police stations would be essentials. Eventually, 1,314 people were arrested, making record police court business next day. All this surely could only happen in Britain. Don't ask where it gets us. We're a free country, and at the expense of a lot of small fines, the demonstrators expressed themselves in their own way. Rise Norton was one of the places chosen by supporters of the Committee of 100 in the latest demonstration of the Ban the Bomb campaign, another big sit-down. They knew that they wouldn't be allowed in the base, but went there just the same. More Ban the Bombers went to Wethersfield, and helping to keep watch there and blow a lot of hot air down on them was an outsize helicopter. The squatters believe, with Bertrand Russell, that we shall all be lucky to be alive this time next year, unless Britain gives a lead by denouncing the bomb and closing the nuclear bases. Randolph Churchill, present as a reporter, doesn't agree. So this is the latest version of the age-old argument between those who say that armaments always lead to war and those who say that to be disarmed is to incur certain defeat. Both sides can quote history to prove their case. RAF security men had their work cut out. Others with their work cut out were the police, who had been brought in large numbers. Before the day was over, they'd arrested more than 800, some here, others elsewhere, at different bases. The special courts were held, and the fines, if not big enough to pay the national debt, must have amounted to a lot of money. The sit-downers point out that this sort of thing half a century ago got suffragettes the vote. Not a parallel case perhaps, but there it is. Advocates of law and order say all this is nonsense, though perhaps it's part of the price we pay for being a free country.
The Eastern world, it is exploding, violence flaring, bullets loading. You're old enough to kill, but not for voting. You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River has bodies floating. But you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. You understand what I'm trying to say? Can't you feel the fears I'm feeling today? If the button is pushed, there's no running away. There'll be no one to save with the world in a grave. Take a look around you, boy. It's bound to scare you, boy. And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Yeah, my blood's so mad, feels like coagulating. I'm sitting here just contemplating a cat with the truth. It knows no regulation. Handful of senators don't pass legislation, and marches alone can't bring integration when human respect is disintegrating. This whole crazy world is just too frustrating, and you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Think of all the hate there is in Red China, then take a look around to Selma, Alabama. You may leave here for 4 days in space, but when you return, it's the same old place. The pounding of the drums, the pride and disgrace. You can bury your dead, but don't leave a trace. Hate your next door neighbor, but don't forget to take race and tell me.
It started as an anti-Vietnam War demonstration in Trafalgar Square. About 10,000 gathered. Most of them were young. Most of them were sincere. They wanted peace. Their motives seemed honorable. They came from most walks of life. Vanessa Redgrave, as usual, was in the vanguard of the would-be peacemakers. But also there were troublemakers. People not content to just voice their disapproval of the war in Vietnam. A hardcore with intentions to drag the majority of well-intentioned demonstrators down to their sickening level. And so they marched through the Sunday streets of London to Grosvenor Square and the American Embassy. Riot was being incited. At Grosvenor Square, police warned to expect trouble waited. Their intention to keep the peace, prevent trouble. But at the head and in the midst of the advancing column, the hate makers were at work. This was how they turned a demonstration for peace into a bloody riot such as Britain has never before witnessed.
One 117 policemen were injured while defending themselves and doing their duty. Only 45 demonstrators were hurt. The police have earned the highest possible praise for their incredible self-control against overwhelming brute force on a day when a demonstration for peace ended as a war in the heart of London.